Late autumn's cool air carried the scent of earth and would smoke when she entered the orchard. The trees were bare but for a few scattered leaves that fluttered down when a breeze swept through them, as if they too felt the chill of the seasons turning. In the midst of this quiet place stood an old woman with a basket filled to its brim. She moved slowly and deliberately, pausing often to gaze at the fading landscape around her. Each step seemed measured, each breath drawn out in silent contemplation. From behind one of the apple trees emerged a child, no more than 5 years old, her eyes wide with curiosity. In her small hands she carried another basket, but this one was too big for her. It sagged beneath its weight as though it were about to spill over onto the ground at any moment. The woman stopped and turned to face the girl, who approached hesitantly, unsure of what to do or say. The old woman's eyes softened with a smile that didn't quite reach her lips, a gentle kindness without pretense. "Do you need help?" she asked quietly. The child nodded, her fingers tightening around the handle as if it were an anchor keeping her grounded amidst the swirling leaves. "I dropped some of these," she said, pointing to where apples had spilled onto the mossy ground nearby. She bent down but found herself struggling with balance under the weight of her basket. Without another word, the old woman walked over and knelt beside her. They worked together, picking up the fruit one by one. The child watched as the woman's hands moved efficiently yet tenderly, each apple placed back into its home within the woven basket until not a single piece was left behind. Once all the apples were gathered again, the old woman held out her hand to help lift the weight off the girl's arms. With combined effort, they managed to straighten up and balance the load once more between them. "Thank you," said the child simply, but there was gratitude in her eyes. The woman smiled warmly at this acknowledgement before releasing the basket back into its rightful carrier's grip. She then picked up a solitary leaf that had drifted close by, a vibrant crimson against the muted browns of autumn, and handed it to the girl as if offering something precious and timeless. "What's this for?" asked the child, holding the leaf delicately between her fingers. "It's just here," replied the woman, shrugging with an air of acceptance. "Sometimes we carry things that feel too heavy, and sometimes we find lightness in unlikely places." The girl looked at her curiously but also with a growing sense of understanding beyond words. She placed the leaf carefully into her own pocket before continuing on her way back home. As she walked away, the woman watched her go until all that remained was a figure shrinking against the horizon, eventually disappearing entirely from sight. The old woman turned and stepped through the orchard gate, closing it softly behind herself with the same gentle resolve with which she had always lived, acknowledging change without resistance, embracing the impermanence of each fleeting moment as if holding on to nothing at all. The sound of a single leaf falling gently to the ground echoed quietly in the still air.
You're listening to the Empty Teahouse. A single apple rolled down the hill, pausing by the forest path. On a salt flat at low tide, water receded to reveal cracked earth stretching far and wide.
On a salt flat at low tide, the water receded to reveal a vast expanse of cracked earth stretching as far as the eye could see. The sky was clear and blue, with only a few wispy clouds floating lazily above. In this quiet place, two figures walked side by side. An old woman with sun-weathered skin and a younger man with wide, curious eyes. The woman moved slowly, her steps measured, each footfall leaving small impressions in the dry mud. She wore simple clothes and carried nothing but a linen sack filled with salt she had collected earlier that day. Beside her, the young man walked quietly, his hands tucked into the pockets of his trousers, looking down at the ground. "Why do you gather so much salt?" he asked eventually, breaking the silence between them. "It's only used to preserve food." She smiled without turning towards him. "It's there," she said simply. "What else would we use it for?" He paused, considering her words as they walked on. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the salt flat. They came upon an old wooden hut perched at the edge of a small grove of trees. The door stood slightly open, and inside several baskets lined the walls, filled with neatly stacked blocks of salt drying in the air. The young man hesitated at the entrance while she stepped past him, her movements fluid as always. She placed the sack near the door before turning back to him. "Come," she said softly. "Sit." He entered and took a seat on an old stool by the wall. She busied herself with arranging the salt in rows, then glanced at him from time to time. "Do you like living here?" he asked after some moments. She nodded. "Yes." "Why?" "I don't understand it," he said frankly. "I've been offered a job in the city." The woman paused, her eyes distant as she considered his words. She looked up at him again and smiled warmly. "And there you will be happy?" she asked gently. He shrugged. "Perhaps not forever, but—" "Then perhaps it's not for you," she interjected calmly. Her hands moved deftly over the salt, arranging each piece with care. His eyes followed her movements, watching as each block was carefully placed in its designated spot on a drying rack. The sun outside began to sink lower into the sky, casting long shadows through the windowless hut. "I just feel lost," he admitted quietly. "There's something missing." She turned and looked at him directly then, meeting his eyes with hers. "Sometimes what we seek is simpler than it seems," she said without elaboration. He nodded slowly, a small smile creeping onto his lips as well. They sat in companionable silence for some time, the setting sun filling the room with a warm golden light. Eventually, he stood up and stretched his limbs. She looked at him expectantly, her face serene. "Can I help you pack the salt?" he asked hesitantly. She smiled again, nodding her head towards the drying racks. "Thank you," she said quietly as they began to work together, moving through their tasks with a quiet rhythm and mutual understanding that spoke more than words could ever convey.
The lantern flame swayed once, then steadied again. Late autumn air held crispness as Li Hua walked through thinning orchard trees.
Late autumn air held the crispness of impending winter as Li Hua made her way through the thinning orchard. The trees were bare now, their branches reaching out like old hands in need of warmth. She paused under a gnarled apple tree and picked up a fallen leaf, brown and brittle, but still retaining hints of red. A rustling sound drew her attention to an elderly man nearby, tending to his hives with practiced care. He moved silently around the rows of wooden boxes, opening each one carefully to inspect its contents. His movements were slow yet purposeful, hands steady despite their age. Li Hua approached him and said softly, "Good afternoon." The old beekeeper looked up at her, but did not stop his work. "Afternoon," he replied without looking away from the hive before him. She stood beside him in comfortable silence for a moment until she asked, "What do you see in there?" He glanced briefly over at her and then back to the honeycomb. His voice was matter-of-fact as he spoke. "I see bees." "But what else?" "What more?" she pressed gently. The man paused his work and looked her square in the eye. There was no judgment in his gaze. Instead, it held an understanding that felt like a warm hand passing over ice. He said, "All I need to know is there are still workers inside." Li Huan nodded slowly, absorbing this without any words. She watched him close up one hive and move on to the next. As he worked, she noticed his fingers were stained with pollen. It was a simple detail but struck her deeply. How something so small could carry such weight of meaning without ever needing to speak it aloud. She reached out tentatively and touched his hand lightly. He did not pull away but instead left his hand where hers had landed, allowing the moment between them to linger like a shared breath in cold air. Finally, she stepped back and said quietly, "Thank you." The beekeeper nodded once before turning his attention fully back to his work. His movements resumed their rhythm of quiet purpose, as if nothing had altered or paused at all. Li Hua watched him for another moment, feeling the autumn chill settle around her, but also a warmth inside that seemed to mirror his own calm. With one last look toward where he stood among the hives, she turned and walked away with a step lighter than before.
The lantern hanging from a nearby porch cast warm light over the bridge's surface. In soft dusk, the wooden bridge hummed with quiet sounds of evening.
In the soft light of dusk, the wooden bridge over the small stream hummed with the quiet sounds of evening. Raindrops clung to the leaves and branches, dripping into the water below. Here stood a man who had once left this village behind but now returned, no longer wearing his old uniform. His eyes wandered along the worn wood of the bridge's handrail, reflecting the gentle sway of the stream. Beside him approached a young girl carrying a basket that seemed too heavy for her small frame. She paused at the edge of the bridge, looking uncertain as she glanced up at the man. "Hello," the returning soldier said gently, recognizing someone from his childhood. The girl's eyes met his, and he saw in them a trace of recognition and perhaps curiosity about who he was now. "It's too heavy," she murmured to herself more than to him, looking down into her basket as if it contained all her worries. "Need help?" the man asked, nodding towards her burden. The girl nodded slowly, setting the basket gently beside her on the bridge's edge and turning to face him. She was a bit taller now, with braids that trailed over her shoulders like dark ropes. The man knelt next to the basket and lifted it as if lifting an old weight he carried himself, yet he did not complain. He balanced it easily between his hands, studying its contents, dried herbs and small bundles of twigs tightly wrapped in cloth. Some were carefully labeled with inked notes on paper scraps, recipes for healing. "Who's this for?" he asked, noting the care put into each bundle. "A friend," she replied quietly. "She's ill." The man nodded, understanding without needing to ask more. He placed his hands on either side of her waist and helped her lift the basket back up. She took it from him easily but stopped halfway, turning towards him again with a look of hesitation in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, then hesitated as if there was something else she wanted to say or do. The man felt her pause and met her gaze openly, offering his hand without words. She looked down at it for a moment before taking it shyly, her fingers curling around the rough calluses of his palm. Together they walked along the bridge side by side, their footsteps muffled by wet leaves underfoot. Halfway across, he stopped and pointed downstream to where the stream curved slightly behind some old willows. "My favorite spot," he said simply. She smiled softly, looking there too but not needing to be told why it was special. He let go of her hand then, understanding that now they had their moment, she would return with her purpose. As she turned back towards the path leading away from the bridge and into the dusk shadows, he stood watching until she disappeared. Then, he continued his own walk along the bank, his steps slower and more measured as if carried by the stream's rhythm itself. The only sound was water dripping from leaves above, a gentle refrain. The girl's small handprint remained faintly visible on one of the bridge's wooden planks, a testament to her passage that night.
A single gull called out to the rising sun. At low tide, under moonlight, the salt flat shimmered towards distant mountains.
At low tide, the salt flat shimmered under the moonlight, its vast expanse stretching towards distant mountains. A fisherman and a weaver stood at opposite ends of this lunar landscape, both lost in their thoughts until the wind whispered their names together. The fisherman's net lay open beside him, each knot loosened as if by silent permission from unseen currents. He had been here all evening, waiting for something he could no longer name or claim. The weaver, her hands still stiff with age-old patterns, approached silently, knowing she would not speak unless spoken to. She stopped a few paces away, looking out at the endless salt crystals beneath their feet. "Your fingers are like mine now," she said finally, though it wasn't quite an observation, but more a recognition of shared time and patience. He nodded, turning his face towards her, then back again toward the sea that could barely be seen behind the glittering plain of earth. "We watch what comes and goes," he replied simply, not questioning why or how. She moved closer to stand beside him, neither of them needing words for comfort now. Her hand touched his shoulder lightly before dropping away. It was all they needed, a shared breath suspended between them, a moment where the world narrowed down to these two old souls on this salt-strewn plain. The wind shifted then, and with it came the distant cry of gulls just above the horizon. "Those are your birds," she said softly, though he already knew. The fisherman's eyes tracked their path towards him as if guided by an unseen hand. He offered her a nod of acknowledgement before turning back to his empty net. She watched for a while longer, noting how each ripple in the flat landscape seemed to carry some secret away. "I should be going," she murmured more to herself than him, gathering her thread-worn scarf around her shoulders against an unexpected chill rising off the wet earth. He didn't look at her as he spoke, but instead focused on a small puddle of water trapped between two large crystals, reflecting back tiny images of them both. "If you must," was all he said before turning fully towards her once more to witness her departure. His eyes followed her retreating form until she disappeared into the mist rolling in from the sea. In his peripheral vision, one gull swooped down just beside him, its wings brushing gently against the webbing of his empty net as it circled overhead. He glanced up at the birds circling above before turning again to the salt flat stretching out below and beyond. His gaze followed its path until he could no longer see it. As she walked back through the thinning fog towards her village, the weaver felt a lightness in her steps that surprised her. She didn't know why, but the weight seemed lighter now, easier to carry forward into whatever tomorrow might hold. Back by the salt flat, as dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, he stood alone once more with his net spread out around him like an open hand welcoming all comers or none at all. A breeze stirred the crystals again, each one catching light and releasing it back into the air, casting fleeting shadows that danced across the ground before fading away. He picked up a small piece of salt and held it between two fingers, its edges sharp but smooth at heart. As he let go of it, watching as it fell to the earth where thousands like it already lay buried by time and tide, his face broke into a rare smile that said more than any words ever could have.
Somewhere on the salt flat, a single gull called out to the dawn. Fields of silence stretch ahead as the day begins anew. The empty tea house rests. Until tomorrow.